everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from November 15th, 2024, and recording this on May 14th, 2025. As always, I give you those dates so you know when this is most relevant. Also, as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic-Con Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week from that week back in November. Why do we do this? Because the market is always moving and changing rapidly. And by looking back 6 months, we can see what factors affected those books, made them hot, made people chase the books. And then just 6 months later, how are they doing in the market? Should you have just been patient for a little bit? Would you have gotten a better deal if you were patient? Or were they worth diving into while they were hot? This week, we got 16 books to look back at from the two lists. So let's just get started and see what we can learn. First up, we got Forbidden Planet, number 1 from 1992. And this was hitting the list because we got news that Brian K. Vaughan, I don't know where I was coming up with John. Brian K. Vaughan was scripting a reboot series for this series. Back then, it was going basically a $5 to $30 book, 9.8 around 100. Now it's a $5 to $20 book. 9.8's actually crept up, only a couple of sales, but they've crept up to 120 to 150. So overall, we're just going to call this kind of steady and worth it. You can get the raws a little cheaper on average, but the 9.8s have crept up a little bit. So we'll just say steady and worth it on this particular one. No news, as far as I know, that this has moved forward any further than the news we got back then that they were working on a script. Next, we got Emily the Strange, I believe for the 4th week in a row. This is hitting the list. It was couple weeks ago or last week we were talking about it. It was like 75 to 130, but there was a couple like $300 sales. 2 weeks ago it was like a 15 to 50, but by the end of that there was like an $80 and a $90 sale. So this book has just been slowly increasing. Seemed to have settled by this third week, not fourth. It's 75 to 150. Now it's a $40 to $50 book, which is still really good based on just option news that it was optioned for an animated movie. But a dumpster fire to those high-end prices that it got to by the second and third week that people were chasing this book. All right, next. We got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, number 1. Basically, we got news that filming was to start in January. So people were jumping back on this book. It didn't really jump that much in value. It was still like a $90 to $120 book raw, which is only up a little bit from what it had just been going for anyway. 180 to 250 for 9.8. Again, only a very slight bump with that news that they were working on filming. We knew they were working on a game. We knew they were working on film. There was going to be a live action adaptation. So all of this we knew was coming. So really didn't bump the book that much. Now it's an $80 to $125 book raw. So right in the same range. 9.8. 200 to 300, so maybe a slight bump there. Overall, another one we're just going to call steady and worth it. This has been a really good book since it came out. I would recommend just reading it, not necessarily trying to like spec on it, because I don't know that it's ever going to like spec for anything more than what it is right now. Next, we got Psylock, number 1, the Art Germ 1 in 100 Virgin variant that came out this year. $115 to $130 for this 1 in 100 back then. Now 80 to 100, 9.8, 160 to 200. So I figured this might end up being a trap. This is more than I'll be back kind of range, but it's definitely down, borderline into trap, but definitely down. Not one of my favorite Art Germ covers, but it is one that's still 80 to 100 for a 1 in 100 6 months later. So right at ratio, it's not that bad actually. 1 in 100s don't necessarily hold that well. Next, speaking of 1 in 100s, we got Absolute Superman, number 1, the Jim Lee 1 in 100 sketch variant. 130 to 200 on this one when it was coming out. There was a 9.8 pre-sale for 400. Now it's a 30 to 120 book. Big range on these. The 30 is a little bit of an outlier on the low end, but there's definitely some other sales under $100. 150 to 300 on a 9.8. So down in a trap on this one. The Absolute Superman, I think I've heard people say good things about the read, but it does seem to be the one that has not held as well of the three in terms of value from the little bump in value it got back then. Speaking of which, we got Absolute Wonder Woman, number 1, the Dan Panosian 1 in 25. This does appear to be the cover for that first issue of Absolute Wonder Woman that people are chasing the most. Back then it was 55 to 65. Now it's 40 to 60, 9.8. Interestingly enough, 60 to 100. So there's almost a little overlap there. But steady, and I'll be back on this one. You can definitely do a little bit better, but it's still right in that same kind of range as it was back then in the fall. Next, we got Tales of the Bizarre number 9. This was hitting the list because it was credited as Zaf cover art, but there was basically rumors or thought that this was actually an AI cover that was coming on, and so that's why people were chasing it, because it was supposedly AI. 35 to 60 back then. Now it's a $20 to $25 book, so still going for a decent value, but definitely a trap compared to what it was back then. Personally, if this is really AI, I don't know 100% that it is, but if it's AI, I wouldn't pay $2 for it. So I'm very much against AI art for reasons I've stated before. But anyway, yeah. Next, we got Mark Spears' Monsters, the book I am always right on. The first print was hitting the list again. And at this point, it was when it re-hit the list here in November, after it'd been on the list a couple of times, we got some of the variants, some of the seconds. It was still only a $40 to $150 book for the cover A, which I still thought was, it had come down a little bit, that it was going to come down more. Nope. 2 to 275 now, 9.8 is 350. This is the up straight cash as it gets. Yeah, definitely people are still all about this Mark Spears Monsters. I'm surprised at how much this has bucked the normal trend. Clearly, I have been wrong on this all along, but yeah, it's still going strong at 200 plus for a raw copy of this thing. Crazy. Mark Spears Monsters number 1, the second print with the quote unquote error, basically, and I don't even know if I might have grabbed the wrong image. The error is like there's a mole on the girl's shoulder when she's opening the door. That's not supposed to technically be there. It was supposedly an error variant, but it was more like maybe a printer smudge or something. Anyway, $20 to $100 back then. Now it's a $30 to $100 book. So 9.8, 1 to 225. So big range on 9.8 on the error variant or error version of this particular second print. So steady and worth it. It stayed right in the same range. It is one of the few Mark Spears Monsters books that hasn't taken off. So I guess it's telling you one thing, that the error isn't really going for more than just the regular second print. Next, we got Spider-Boy number 12, the first appearance of Spider-Girl Christina Zhu as Spider-Girl. So this is where she becomes Spider-Girl. Last week we talked about issue 11 where Christina appears, but this is her first appearance as Spider-Girl. Back then, it was just a $5 to $10 book, 9.860 for this A cover. There's a bunch of variants that have her on the cover in costume. Those appear to be while this is basically a cover price book, those are like $20 books at this point. So this is clearly one where the A cover is not going to be the cover. People want the ones that she's on, and those are more in the $20 range. But this particular one is a down and I'll be back. No reason to chase this cover A. You've been better off trying to get one of those covers that she's actually on. Next, we have Amazing Spider-Man number 328, the last McFarlane on Spidey, hitting the list. No reason other than I feel like sometimes Tom just loves to put Todd McFarlane books on the list. I mean, I don't know. There's no, I'm not sure why this was hitting the list. They didn't really give a justification. $30 for raw copies, 9.8, 130 or 140. Now it's a $5 to $30 book raw, 9.8, 80 to 175. I would still put this as a down and I'll be back. You could say steady and I'll be back maybe, but yeah, no reason to have chased it back then. You can definitely find a little bit better deals, but even back then, it wasn't really outside its normal range. So, all right, next. We got Star Wars The Force Awakens, number 1, first appearance of Rey. And we had rumors that we were going to get more movies with Rey. $15 to $25 for raw copies back then. 9.8, 160 based on one sale. Now it's a $5 to $20 book. 9.8, 150 based on one sale. So down and I'll be back. Not a lot of love for the third trilogy. we will see Star Wars. I think those had a little bit of a renaissance. I think people have been very big fans of, after being not fans of a lot of Star Wars stuff. I think people were really big fans of Skeleton Crew. I think they really enjoyed Andor. So maybe Star Wars is going to start having a little bit more of a bump, and a little more people are going to be a little more excited for some of these projects. We will see. Next, get back over here. We got What If #1. This was hitting the list because a new series of the season 3 of the anime. Was it season 3 or season 4? Season 3, I think, of the animated series was coming out. Putting this on people's radars. 10 to 60 back then. 9.6, 60 to 150. Wasn't really outside the range of this book. This is a book that's, I forgot to change the date on this one. This should say 1977, but instead of 2024. But anyway, this is a book that's got pretty decent value anyway. Hasn't really moved since then. It really didn't jump much. There's more of a spike in sales. So Steady and I'll be back on this one. No surprise there. Fantastic Four #52 hitting the list. First appearance of Black Panther. And this was hitting the list because rumors that Denzel was going to be in the next Wakanda project that they were working on. Didn't really say who he was going to play. Obviously, he's not playing Black Panther. But anyway, it caused a stir. People to maybe realize this book had fallen too far post Chadwick's death and post Black Panther 2, that maybe this book had fallen back a little too far from post comic boom, all of that. 6.0 back then was hitting 650. Now 6.0 is 7 to 775, so it's up. Raw copies 175 to 500, also up just a little bit. So yeah, up and worth it on this one. I think that maybe this is a book that had overcorrected post comic boom and everything that went on with him. Maybe starting to get back a little more closer to where it actually belongs. And then finally, last book. Oh, no, not last book. Second to last book. Daredevil 183. And this is basically, we got some advertisements and stuff for, or information, I should say, for Daredevil Born Again. That Punisher was going to be a big part of the show. Caused this book to hit the list again, even though we got this back in the original Netflix show. $20 to $40 back then. 9.8 direct, 200, newsstand 400. Now with the show just ending and this definitely being a big part, 10 to 35 for raw copies, 9.8, 150 to 250. Newsstand's up a little bit, but most of the sales for raw and 9.8 are either steady or slightly down. So we'll call it steady and worth it overall. We will see now that we move, whether or not this kind of, it's not that much higher than normal. My guess is that's where it's going to return to as we move away from the show. And then last, this week we had Captain America 230. And this is really just because this cover was homaged in a poster for Captain America Brave New World. That movie did not do particularly well. It doesn't seem like at the box office. $30 to $60 back then for this cover that poster was based on. Not really different characters and everything, but people were jumping on it. $500 for 9.8 back then. Now it's a $10 to $40 book. 9.8, $300. So definitely a trap. Definitely a really poor reason, even if the movie had been great, really poor reason to have chased this book and spent extra on it than you would normally have to. So that is all the books this week. We got through all 16 books. For the most part, we had a decent number of steady books, a few down books. Let's look at our recap here. We had 2 books that went up, both of them, one of Mark Spears and what was the other one here? Let me look at my own list. And then that Fantastic Four Black Panther were both up. Obviously, the Mark Spears book up a ton. Quite a few steady books this week at 6. And then obviously a bunch of downs, with that Emily the Strange being the biggest decreaser this week in terms of value. So I want to do a quick shout out to my members. I appreciate all of you guys for supporting my channel and sticking with me, helping me keep this channel going. I really appreciate it. And with that, we are going to catch you next time. Later, everybody.